Okay, so today we're going to be talking about writing equations again, okay, y equals mx plus b, and when we're given 2 points on like a graph, okay, so we could always, yes, we can plot any 2 points, okay, we could plot them, draw on our line, okay, find a rise over a run, find our y-intercept, but again, that takes a lot of time, and hopefully in these next 5 steps, these will hopefully help us then from graphing and doing all of that extra work. Okay, so we are going to be talking today about what happens when we're given 2 points on a graph. Okay, just 2 coordinate points. Yesterday we talked about when we had 1 coordinate point and the slope. Okay, so it's going to be kind of similar, but we're not given the slope in this time. So we're going to have to find the slope. Okay, so first, on your note sheet, I need you to pause the video and you're going to write down these 5 steps. All right, hopefully you paused it. Okay, our first step is we need to find out what the slope is. Okay, because we're given these 2 coordinate points, but we're not given anything else. So step number 1 is finding the slope. And if you want to add into your notes the slope formula, I think that would be something good to just have next to step number 1 in case you forgot it from the other day. Okay, so slope formula, okay, whenever we're given 2 coordinate points, that's how we find the slope. Okay, so write that down next to step 1 if you haven't already. Okay, maybe box it or circle it or put it at the top of your paper, okay, just so it's easy to find next time. Okay, then step number 2, after we find the slope, okay, these are going to be the exact same steps as yesterday. Okay, we need to put the slope in for m. Okay, we go back to our original equation, we just plug in for m. So I'd have y equals my slope times x plus b. Okay, then the same as the other day, step 3, okay, we're going to pick, because remember, we are given 2 different coordinate points. So we can just pick one, pick your favorite, okay, and you're going to plug that coordinate point in for x and for y. Okay, then step 4, we have to find that y-intercept. Okay, we have to find out what our b is. Okay, we're going to do a 2-step equation, okay, solving just like we did the other day. And then step 5, okay, your equation should look like y equals, you should have a slope and you should have a y-intercept. Okay, so you should have x and y in your equation. You're not plugging any numbers in your last step. Okay, so that's kind of the goal. Okay, so we're going to go through 3 examples together. And example number 1, please make sure that you put your points in the correct spots on your note sheet. Okay, -1, -3, and 2, -6. Okay, our first step is to find the slope. Okay, I should have also said that our first step is also just labeling our points, x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, we have to find that slope. Okay, so step number 1, we are going to be plugging in our slope formula. We're going to plug in those 2 points. Okay, so first, plugging in the points. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we did this the other day in class. Okay, I'm going to plug -6 in for my y2 minus my y1, which was -3. My x2 was 2 minus my x1 I had as -1. Okay, and I'm just going to solve and find my slope. Okay, I can zoom a couple of these, make it a little easier on myself. So I get -3 and +3 on the bottom. So we know that that reduces to just -1. Okay, I would circle it, maybe if you want to write it over below that m equals -1. Okay, so it's in a nice spot because you're going to need it in step number 5 at the end. Okay, then step number 2, it tells us that we need to put slope in for m. Okay, and I found my slope to be -1, so I just plug that in for m. Okay, just like we did yesterday. Okay, then pick one point. Okay, it doesn't matter which point you use. I always like to choose the one that has like 0 in it or positive numbers because I don't like negative numbers. So I try and avoid it, but it doesn't matter. Okay, you can pick whichever point you want. Okay, so I'm going to just pick my second point in this case. Okay, I could have picked -1, -3. And so I'm going to put my -6 in for y and 2 in for x. Okay, and think about, why did I plug -6 in for y? Why did I plug 2 in for x? Okay, because 2 was my x value and -6 was my y value. Okay, and then we go down to step number 4, and we're just going to solve for b. Okay, so we get -6 equals -2 plus b. Okay, because all I did was -1 times 2. And then we're going to add 2 to both sides. Okay, so b ends up being -4. Okay, and again, I would just circle it or box it, whatever works for you, so that you can easily get back to it. Because you need those two things, our slope and our y-intercept, for the final step, our answer. Okay, so our final answer, it should always have a y in it. Okay, we put our slope in. It should always have an x in your answer, and your y-intercept, which we found was -4. Okay, also, you could write it as -x minus 4. Okay, either one of those ways is just fine. If you did not understand this step or this first example, okay, you need to be asking questions. Okay, you're not just copying down the work. Okay, you make sure that you're understanding, why did I find the slope? Why did I find the y-intercept? Example number 2, okay, we have 0, 8 and 3, 2. Okay, we need to, our goal is to get to that y equals mx plus b. Okay, yeah, I could graph those 2 points. I could find the line. I could find my rise over my run. Okay, I could do all that stuff, but it takes a lot of time. Yes, this takes a lot of time too. Okay, but I think this will be easier for some of us instead of like having graph paper all the time. Okay, finding the slope. Okay, so that means I need to label my points. Any time in math class, if you're given 2 coordinate points like this, you should automatically be thinking, I need to label them. Okay, my first coordinate point, my second coordinate point. Okay, so finding the slope. Okay, again, the slope formula, I'll write it down quickly here. Okay, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Okay, then I'm plugging in my numbers. Okay, my x2 was 2 minus 8 and 3 minus 0. Okay, so here I end up getting a -6 divided by 3, which ends up being -2 for my slope in this example. Okay, so if you just want to rewrite it somewhere, okay, so it's easy to locate, that's fine. Okay, then put the slope in for y equals mx plus b. Easy second step. I can do that. Okay, then step 3, pick one point for x and y. Okay, so put one point in for x and y. I see a 0, and I love zeros, so I'm going to use the first coordinate for this example. Okay, if you want to use the second one, that's fine. Not a big deal. Okay, so my y value was 8, because I'm just going to replace my x and my y. My slope was -2, and my x was 0. Okay, step number 4, I'm solving for b. Okay, well, in this case, I get 8 equals -2 times 0 is 0 plus b. Okay, and some of us get confused, like, what do we do with that 0? Well, we can just drop it. Okay, b is just 8. Okay, because if we subtract 0 from both sides, we still get 8. So b is 8. Easy peasy, right? And then our final step. Our final step, we just plug m and b into the equation. I should have a y in my final answer, and I should have an x in my final answer. Okay, so I just plug in the slope and just the y-intercept. Okay, so my final answer, y equals negative 2x plus 8. If I'm going too fast, you need to be pausing the video as I go. Okay, I know that I go through fast, and that's why I like having the video so you can pause me and rewind. Maybe you missed something I said. Okay, so make sure you're utilizing those tools. For our third example, I'm going to have negative 4, 1, and 4, 5. I'm going to go through it a little quicker. Okay, so my slope for this case, I'm going to have my 5 minus 1 on the top, and 4 minus a negative 4 on the bottom. Okay, so I get 4 up top and a positive 8 because I can zoom those. Okay, so my slope ends up being 1/2 positive. Okay, so m equals 1/2. Okay, then for my next one, I have y equals mx plus b. Okay, and I'm putting the slope in for my m, 1/2 x plus b. And then I get to put 1 point in for x and y. Okay, and I see a 1 in there, and I know 1s are easier to work with, so I'm going to choose this point here. Okay, and some of you might say, well, I don't like that negative 4, and that's fine. Okay, you can choose to do the other point. So my y value was 1. I have my 1/2, and I have my negative 4 here. Right, for this case, 1/2 times negative 4, okay, because I'm solving for b, I get a negative 2 plus b. If you need to check that in your calculator, you can do that. Okay, and then I'm solving for b, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So b ends up being a positive 3 for this example. Okay, then put m and b back into y equals mx plus b. So y equals 1/2 x plus my y-intercept, which was 3. So that's my final answer. Right? If you're confused on any of these steps, make sure that you're pausing. Okay, maybe rewatch an example, and then you can ask me some questions.